This is a conversation with Michael Holt, who is a holistic health expert, masculine vitality specialist, and founder of the internationally renowned Savage and Saint Consultancy. He serves elite performers in the cultivation of vitality, depth of consciousness, and performance excellence. And he brings a wide range of specialties, including meditation, martial arts, Western psychology, and exercise science. So we go really deep into certain topics and tools that enhances our day-to-day lives, including uplifting our energy and health and vitality. We go over how we could have better sleep, how we could structure our day and our mind and our purpose into achieving our goals, how to eat the right food, how to take care of ourselves, our mind, body, and spirit. And this is a short episode, but the topics that we covered can have its own side episode. So we tried as much as we can to cover in this little time we have. And I really enjoyed this conversation. He is an expert in his field, a man of wisdom and depth. Hopefully you guys enjoy the episode. Thank you. Michael, hope you are well.
Thanks, man. Feeling
Good,
good.
good to have you back. We have done a podcast a few years ago.
Yeah, how
I
long ago you think that was?
think 2021, 22, something like that. I think during the pandemic, I believe. Or
Time marches on, huh, Shamim?
yes, so thank you for coming back. I'm really excited to have you. I have a lot of things in my mind I want to discuss, but let me reintroduce you to my fellow listeners. You are a holistic coach, a meditation teacher, a men's coach. You deal with topics of strength, vitality, masculinity, energy, focus, direction, contemplation, etc. All the tools that I think would embody a human being to unleash their potential or reach their peak so that they can thrive. Um, Hope I was able to sort of map something out, but I'll give you the floor.
Yeah, so I refer to myself as a holistic health practitioner and a masculine vitality specialist. I specialize in the optimal self governance strategies that, like you said, will help one to evoke the fullness of their potential, to overcome present limiting factors, whether they be poor lifestyle habits or internal issues, afflictive beliefs, or perceptions that are perhaps difficult to, um, that are so hidden in that are so prevalent that it's difficult to see without some outside feedback. Um, yeah, and I work as a consultant in my business. I work with groups. I teach online courses, and I facilitate men's retreats. And then I also work one on one with high functioning executives, entrepreneurs who are looking for an edge in their performance.
Thank you for sharing. So, what are some of the factors that hold us back in, first of all, seeing that there is this lack of vitality, being stuck in that zone, and how to tap into that inner power?
The first thing that comes to mind, I think, Shamim, is just cultural norms. Um, we've normalized in our modern culture just a very low level of energy. Most people, I mean, are just not well. Most people are not thriving. Most people are not fully alive, fully engaged in the unfolding of their life. It's not normal. So um, if you would want to unlock, an internal state of mental clarity, if you would want to baseline a level of energy that is palpable and you feel like you have enough oomph to not only get through your day, but plus some, to be creative, then you have to live in a way that's not normal, because look at what normal is today. It's slow, borderline sick, not necessarily well, overweight, kind of distracted. I mean, just go to a public place where there's a large mass of people and just look around. So if you would want better than average for yourself, if you would want better than normal for yourself, then you have to live in a way that is not normal by the judgment of this modern culture.
Mm, well
Now,
said.
I'll say quickly, that doesn't mean that you have to like do super far out esoteric, like it's not necessarily weird. I mean, the prescription for vitality, the baseline is very simple. Establish concentration, breathe functionally, sleep well, drink clean water and plenty of it, eat real food exclusively, and move your body in a way that feels good. Do that every single day and watch what happens. It's very simple. It's not complicated stuff. It's not easy in a culture where that's not the norm because you have to summon the discipline and the resolve to pull yourself out of the cultural momentum toward lethargy, disease, low vitality. But it is simple.
Hmm. And you mentioned some critical or important integral components that once you optimize it, you could reach that mental peak state. And you mentioned hygiene, concentration, food. Um, let's talk about some of these in the time we have. Let's start with functional breathing, and
Hmm.
it's one of my, people know breathing. There are, you have soft breathing, fast breathing, fast breathing. There's different breathing techniques. So, if you want to slow down your nervous system, you have a way to breathe. You want to uh, get a heightened, energetic, focused nervous system, there's a certain way to breathe. So, can you talk a little bit about the science of breathing and how using breath we can tap into things like concentration, energy, vitality? I'm really
Sure.
interested in knowing that.
So, as you know, the breath, you can manipulate your breath and breathe your way into some pretty psychedelic, transcendent experiences, uh, non dual experiences where the barrier between self and world seem to dissolve, and it's almost an experience of unity with some larger aspect of yourself. Uh, but functional breathing is actually way more simple than that. You don't have to push it. I know that you are an explorer. I am too. So we like to push the breath work into, you know, beyond the beyond. But that's not, you don't have to do that. The way I like to talk about breath practice is extrapolate the breath on a continuum. We may have talked this before because I say this all the time. But imagine on one extreme end of the spectrum is a panic attack. Very short, very choppy, erratic mouth breathing. And on the other far extreme side of the continuum is a fully embodied, slow, max inhalation, max exhalation, deep, full capacity breath. Okay. Now, attached to each one of those extreme examples is obviously a feeling state. Attached to the short, erratic, choppy mouth breathing is a state of anxiety, fear, tension, lack. And attached to the full body breath is just a general baseline background of ease, contentment, safety, enough. And so each individual's inquiry becomes where along that continuum does my breath land moment by moment by moment when I'm not necessarily thinking about it, when I'm just existing, when I'm just going through the daily operations of my life. Is my breath closer to that of a panic attack or closer to that of a full capacity breath? And most people, if you just watch individuals, most people are not breathing at capacity. Their breath is very shallow, very short. A lot of people are breathing through their mouths. And that is going to come with a background, constant, diffuse, difficult to pinpoint exactly why I don't feel good. I feel off. Something is missing. The opposite is also true. If you engage the practice of retraining your system to breathe at capacity to the point where it's just a baseline, you don't have to think about it, your body just breathes functionally. That comes with a background, moment by moment, just kind of constant. Oh, nice. Lovely.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people, they will feel tension, feel off, and then they'll look outside at what is the situation that is causing this. Is it my relationship? I'm not fulfilled in my career. I don't like the way I look, whatever. But really, it's much more proximal than that. You're just not breathing well. So breathe well and watch what happens. Not only will you calm your nervous system down, but you'll get more energy. And then you can use that energy to the next endeavor, which might be sleep hygiene or hydration or nutrition. So the curriculum that I've built out, what I call the Masculine Vitality Program, is about cultivating energy. It's about grabbing the low-hanging fruit that can up-level your felt sense of vibrancy, chi, prana, vitality. And the more energy you have, the more creative you can become. Most guys in the modern era get to a point where, man, I got to make some changes. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to go work out 4 days a week. Punish myself through excruciating workouts that I don't even have the energy to get through. So they skip over meditation, they skip over breathing, they skip over sleep, nutrition, and hydration. They go right to the gym. What's happening? You're dragging your tired, depleted carcass that doesn't even have enough energy to get through your day. And now you're asking it to get through a hard workout 2, 3, 4, 5 times a week. Sooner or later, you're either going to get injured or you're going to quit. But if you play by the rules, you go in, there's a specific order of operations here, in my professional opinion, and in my personal life. And if you start to check the boxes for cultivating energy, you get to a point where you got so much chi coursing through your veins that you have to exercise, you have to move. It's no longer an act of discipline. You're no longer dragging a depleted carcass into an exercise based on the idea that you think it's good for you. You start to feel like an animal and you just want to move.
Hmm.
So that's what the course is about. That's what my work is about. Energy, vitality, chi, creativity, life force. And like I said before, if you look around, go to a public place, how many people do you encounter that you actually can just tell just by looking at them? Whoa, that person switched on. Nowadays, it's rare.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I've been practicing some Taoist Neigong internal alchemy breath practices with the past few months that focus merely on the lower dantian, the under the tiny area, and I could see the change of first of all I could see what's my capacity, and just the change after maybe 30 to 40 minutes of practice. There's an internal recognition of understanding, like, wow, my state prior to this was not the same, and I could feel the chi or the energy, and there are many practices out there that people can tap into. Would you mind sharing what direction would someone need to go? Say, obviously they can do some consultation with you, but if they want to, say, use breath as a placeholder, as a guide. Is there a tradition or a philosophy or a style that, if someone who's never tried this
Hmm.
would help them out?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of techniques, and in my work and in my course, what I'll do is basically introduce specific techniques in sequence and encourage the men to go through this protocol, for example. So, some that come to mind: full capacity breathing. So, just
Mm.
intentionally lengthening the inhalation and lengthening the exhalation. Just breathing a little deeper than what's habitual for you. Just stretching that musculature, not only stretching the musculature, but improving your capacity to connect to those muscles. Because if you can start to govern those deep internal abdominal muscles that govern breathing, that also opens the door to sexual living. So lengthen the in breath and the out breath. For example, then there's breath of fire, in through the nose, out through the nose. There's what we call tumo breathing, two through the nose, one out the mouth. There's Wim Hof style of over breathing, where you're really being intentional with the in breath and just gentle with the out breath. There's a whole bunch of breath techniques that I'll introduce in the work, but I find in my personal exploration that it's actually a pitfall to start to become a devotee of a certain breath practice. And I've been the guy when I first, when Wim Hof first popped on the scene, whatever, 10 years ago, where I was timing all my retentions and taking notes, and I made it like a science project. And maybe that's, you have to go through that period, but then it starts to occur to you, or at least it starts to occur to me, that actually good breath practice is like playing jazz music. You learn how to play the instrument, and then you just forget the notes. You just play a song. So after you are exposed to some techniques and you practice those techniques with some consistency, then I think good breath practice has a flavor of spontaneity to it. So, like for me personally, I'll do some breathing before my meditation practice every day. But then, as my day goes on, as my day unfolds, I have found that the minimal effective dose of breath work to bring about a transcendent experience or a shift in state gets less and less and less and less as
Mm.
time passes, to the point where you can just take one intentional breath and retain it and maybe generate a little bit of internal pressure and then take a long, slow exhale, and you've totally shifted your state and actually even shifted the perceptual experience. But that's jazz. So jazz is throwing the notes out, throwing the rules out. First, you got to learn how to play the instrument. So that's where stuff like Wim Hof method or the protocols that I lay out in my work and in my course are useful. So for a complete novice, you don't just say, just explore your breath, just freestyle it.
Mm.
You have to give a structure. And so that's, like I said, breath of fire, tumo, over breathing, box breathing. There's a whole bunch of sequences to explore.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. It was I really like the metaphoric comparison of how do you start, and the more you practice, the more you are consistent, you become an aficionado. Like you're able to tap into it without too much effort, and maybe
Exactly.
reach different realms. An entire books and teachers and philosophies and schools are devoted just to the practice of pranayama in the yogic traditions, and yeah, obviously the Taoist traditions as well. Breath is, I think, one of the most underrated. A lot of the people, I mean, like you said, you go out, not many people know about the capacity of the human body and the tools that we have. So it was
Agreed.
um, so okay. We covered breath. Let's talk about. Do you have obviously sleep is vital. The time you wake up, the sunlight. So what's your thoughts on that? how does one optimize? Is it like, do you generally ask your clients to pre-plan their days routine so that they build a habit, or what is your thought on that?
So, just to reframe these lifestyle modifications, in my view, we begin with establishing concentration and training concentration,
Okay.
liberating oneself from the unfortunate normalized level of consciousness that my late teacher Dan Brown referred to as mind wandering mode. Because when you're constantly distracted, you're wasting a lot of energy. So as you start to cultivate concentration, you start to amplify vitality. Then you start to breathe well. Whoa, now vitality is even more. There's a greater upsurge of energy. Now you have the energy to start to um, bring some attention to your sleep hygiene. And my recommendations in that regard are to start in the morning with generally what I teach in the work is the 10-3-2-1-0-1 protocol. So 10 is don't have any caffeine 10 hours before you want to be asleep. But to a good sleep schedule based on the circadian rhythm of the human organism would be approximately you want to be asleep between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. That's what we're designed for. So you don't want to have any caffeine 10 hours before 10 p.m. So people who are you're feeling a little bit of a dip in energy at 3 p.m. So you want to have a shot of espresso. There's going to be a cost to that. That's going to disrupt your um, sleep, your circadian rhythm. So that's priority number one. No caffeine 10 hours before bedtime. 3 is don't have a large meal 3 hours before bedtime, approximately. You can have a little bit of a late night snack, that's okay, but you don't want to have a huge meal and then go right to bed because digestion is a process and sleep is a process. And asking the body to do both of those processes at the same time, it's not going to do either one well. So we want to go to sleep generally digested. 2 is 2 hours before bed, which should be around 10 p.m. We want to just kind of let go of any super cognitively demanding work, kind of mentally draining activities. We want to allow for this process of relaxation to start to unfold. We cannot work and think and produce right up until 10 p.m. and then say, okay, now it's time to sleep. We have to allow for that to happen. You know, the nervous system, the body is like a baby. So 2 hours before bedtime, we want to start to rock that baby to sleep. You know, relax, engage in the behaviors and activities that you find to be relaxing. 1 is 1 hour before sleep, no screens, no cell phone, no artificial light. It's a good time to read a book or stretch or just really start to downregulate. 0 is when your alarm goes off in the morning or when you wake up, get up. Don't hit the snooze button. Hit the snooze button exactly 0 times. Waking up, hitting the snooze, going back to sleep, waking up, hitting the snooze, going back to sleep, it really disrupts the circadian rhythm. And then 1, so we go 10-3-2-1-0-1. 1 is within that first hour of waking, do 2 things. Get outside for 15 minutes at least, or 10-15 minutes. Get sunlight in your eyes. Don't wear any sunglasses. Just expose your eyeballs to the sun and as much as skin as you're comfortable, and let the sunlight start to wake you up. I say in the work, if you want to know what time it is, look at your watch. If you want your body to know what time it is, get your skin in the sun. So when we get that early morning light, we start to increase cortisol production. And when we get a cortisol spike early in the morning, we set a timer for a melatonin spike later in the evening. So we're getting on the same schedule as the sun. And the more our schedule, sleeping and waking, mirrors the sun's schedule of rising and setting, better we feel. So that's 1, get outside. The other thing you want to do within that first hour of waking is get in a cold shower or a cold tub for 3 minutes. Again, that's going to uptick cortisol. And the more cortisol we get in the early morning, the more melatonin we get in the early evening. 10-3-2-1-0-1.
Wow, I like how you made it. It sounds easily palpable and easily. I just like the system and the numbers, and it's easily understandable.
I'm telling you, Shameen, this stuff is very simple. You got to
Mm,
do a deep dive on health. You got to study all of this stuff, and then start to say, "Oh, this stuff is really simple. It's not
mm.
easy, but it is simple."
Yeah, and I think also you want to reach the state where you don't have to use an alarm to wake up. If I'm
Yep,
correct, right? You have to be once you follow this protocol. I think one of the goals is to come to a system. It's like because when you're using alarms, you're always keep on disrupting the cycle.
it's very jarring. It can be very jarring, but what better feeling is there than when you're sleeping and you're sleeping deeply? I mean, this is what we're talking about, like real wealth. And then your eyes just open.
Mm,
Not because an alarm went off, because you have to do anything, because your body has reached sufficient rest. And the eyes
mm,
just open. That's the best way to start your day. So getting your circadian rhythm healthy is so good for your mental, emotional, physical well-being. I mean, sleep is the best medicine available to us. And I often say this in the work too. Don't be the guy who's setting an alarm at 5 o'clock in the morning to drag yourself out of bed so you can go push yourself through some workout. Stan Efferding is a he has a great quote. He's a bodybuilder and a powerlifter. He says if you're waking up early to go to the gym but you haven't got sufficient sleep, then you're stepping over $1 to pick up a dime. If you want to change your physique, if you want to build muscle, if you want to be virile and strong, sleep. I had a guy in the course. He was doing everything right, but his sleep was a mess. He got his sleep dialed in, and he lost like 25 pounds real quick.
mm.
So it's one of the best things that we can do, not only for our mental and emotional well-being, but for our physical appearance.
Yeah, and also obviously people, a lot of us are sleep deprived because of a lot of artificial light, uh,
Sure.
overuse of caffeine and other substances,
And then there's this
nicotine.
messaging in the alpha entrepreneur bro world of sleep when you're dead, grind till you die, which is
Hmm.
just silly because you're going to be dead a lot sooner if you try to be a hero and pretend that you don't need sleep. The more well rested you are, the more brain power you have, the more you can get done in the space of 1, 2, or 3 hours if you're well rested. So it's about
Hmm.
being productive.
Do you use any sleep tracking devices?
Yes, I have. Maybe you've heard of this. This is this is a pen and this is a notebook, and I
Love
use it
it.
occasionally. And I recommend that the guys in the course use it too.
Mhm,
Sleep tracking devices are great. I'm not really a very tech savvy type guy, and I don't really strive to be. I think that you can glean a lot of information from a lot of those wearables and stuff. But I think for a lot of people, it just further facilitates the disconnection from their own body. So I don't use them myself, and I don't necessarily recommend them. I don't have serious beef with people who choose to use them, but I think that self-reflection is sufficient, and connection to the felt sense of your body is sufficient. So, long answer to a simple question: no, I don't use any of those things.
mm, mm. Thank you for sharing that. And what's your protocol on consumption of, your morning intake and your afternoon intake? Because I know um, you have experimented with different food regimens, right? From carnivores to different styles of diets. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you you try it out and then you feel it in your body, you study, and then you bring it out to the world, right? So you are an experimenter
Sure.
based on reading your work. So what are some of your recommendations on that?
So, personally, I find that my body is best. I feel best. I look best. I think most clearly when I eat an animal-based whole foods diet. So a lot of protein, a lot of saturated fat, carbohydrates mostly from fruit, and some sourdough bread, occasional rice, potatoes. But I minimize those things because my body too much carbohydrates makes me feel kind of sleepy and low energy. Um, but that's just me. So I'm not saying that that's what everyone should eat. What I say is just eat real food. No matter, see, where do you come from, Shamim, in the world? Where are your ancestors from?
From Bangladesh.
Sure. So
Mm.
mine are from Northern Europe, mostly Ireland. So everybody comes from a different part of the world, and our bloodlines evolved in those parts of the world through specific diets. Because the food that you're getting in Northern Europe is not going to be the same as what you're getting in Bangladesh. So, general rule: just eat real food. The proportion of macronutrients and the food timing is up to you to figure out based on your unique physiology. And you figure that out by paying attention to your body with regard to what you eat and when. I think that for most guys who are trying to get healthy, and if you're eating a standard American diet, and somebody like me starts to tell you, okay, you got to be keto, so don't eat any carbohydrates. Also, you have to do your intermittent fasting, 17 hours fed, 7 hours fasted, except on this day when you got to do your refeed, and you just make it all crazy and too much. It's like, okay, you know what? Forget that. I'm just going to stick to my pizzas and beer and whatever. But if you just say, just eat real food, like in my course, when we get to our 2 week block on food, the protocol that we follow, we do a little bit of fasting, but the protocol that we stick to and adhere to is just eat real food. If it would confuse a primitive man, if a primitive man wouldn't understand what it is, don't eat it. That's it.
Mhm.
You can eat how much you want, whenever you want. That's a good first step. Try to connect with your body and discern, am I hungry? Eat when you're hungry. Eat until you're not hungry. And just eat real food. Simple, right?
Mhm.
Not that easy. Where are you living now? You're in New York?
I'm in New York, yeah.
So just walk outside and try to restrict yourself to just eat real food and see what options are available to you on the street. It will require some planning and some discipline. You can't just, like I said, you can't just adhere to the norms of modern culture, because a lot of the food options, we live in a culture where there's a lot of food products available, but not a lot of actual food. And for some fucking odd reason, excuse my language, but real food with no additives, not been processed or anything, costs way more than the food with all the stuff that's been added and processed and packaged and all this stuff. So it's a little tricky. But then it brings us to a whole nother aspect of the path of health and the warrior ethos, which is, and I think this is pronounced with food, is that there has to be a bit of a revolutionary kind of energy if you want to get yourself in order. And you have to ask yourself, and I often say this, if I was an evil genius that wanted to manipulate and coerce and control a population and do my best to ensure that the men of that population don't get in my way and and present barriers between me and my nefarious intentions, I would just cut their balls off. But because I can't actually cut the testicles off, I would encourage them and normalize a diet that would cut their balls off for me. I would get them to drink beer and eat Doritos and Pop Tarts and all this junk BS that's just going to turn them into castrated zombies. So they don't have the energy really to question what I'm up to.
Mhm.
So if you want to be a revolutionary in this day and age, just eat real food.
For sure. Yeah, it's I mean, not many people think about the because the trigger is hunger, food that's visually appealing, and you from that thought to that action, you don't have there's not much more information, or they're lacking the revolutionary drive that you're talking about to investigate, find out, forage, because everything comes cheap and easy where you go out and you see your
Mm-hmm.
friends and family ads. So it has everything. The drive to just be normal and eat whatever is available has been so normalized. And I saw this a doctor speaking about something very similar to sort of the nefarious plan of, like, there are forces out there, like, spreading um, fluoride and some other different chemicals that's sort of penetrating our atmosphere, the soil, the food, and it's just having this detrimental effect on the human body. Like, for example, if you look at, like, the mouthwash that we use has fluoride in them, it messes up with the gut bacteria, our oral bacteria,
Mm-hmm.
and because gut is a really vital part, which I really want to talk about too. Following up, yeah, so it's not designed to, you know, for us to be fully awakened in that into that power. So what are your do you how do you optimize your gut health? That's one of my favorite topics. I always ask people. um,
Yeah, so in the course, we simplify it and we look at a healthy functioning gut is basically, the tube from your throat to your anus, and that should be a closed tube. And the best way to ensure that is nutrition and hydration. So, sufficient hydration will ensure that that gut lining is not broken. And eating real foods will ensure that the bacteria, the microorganisms that live all throughout the gut, are more good guys than bad guys. The standard American diet is full of chemical preservatives and artificial substances that our bodies simply do not have the means to break down. The human diet, you have to know, has changed more in the last like two or 300 years than the previous 50,000 years. So from an evolutionary standpoint, there's a lot of food options and food products that our bodies just don't know what to do with. So those compounds fester in our gut and attract fungus and bacteria that can break it down. And now our body, our gut, becomes home to microorganisms that don't have our best interest in mind, because a parasitic organism does not want its host to be dead. No, but it also doesn't want it to be vitally, vibrantly alive and fully healthy, because parasites cannot live inside of a healthy organism, just by definition. So when we eat a standard American diet, we allow for the uh, festering of microorganisms that live inside of our gut, and then those microorganisms are highly intelligent and they have the capacity to influence our emotions and our behaviors and our food choices and our taste buds. So if I'll ask people in the work, if have you ever gotten a ravenous food craving? Like, I have to have something sweet. I need it. And then you're eating it and you're full. It's almost grossing you out, but you can't stop. You're not at the steering wheel. There's
mhm.
something else is living inside the ship. You're not sovereign. And so a whole foods diet will starve those buggers out. And then you become sovereign. And then as your body becomes healthy and you have greater stewardship over your limbic system and your taste buds, the junk food that you used to crave like a junkie actually tastes disgusting. It's gross. And healthy food that you used to think was bland actually feels nourishing and good. So getting the gut in order is critical in my view. It's like the foundation for well-being, and any manner of disease, the lowest common denominator of all disease states is a gut that's not healthy.
Mm, well said. Yeah, some folks say, maybe jokingly or in a sinister way, that we are sort of the vessels. Our purpose is to serve just as vessels for this microbial species. And yes, you highlight the importance of mood, emotions, and yeah, when I was listening to this podcast the other day, where the doctor says, when you go to our healthcare practitioners, the first thing they should be asking is, uh, or inquiring is, how is our gut?
Mm-hmm.
That is not taken into account. And slowly, the mindset of functional medicine is sort of getting more awakened in the culture, and still a big push. And I think the work that you are doing, and you are adding different elements. You are not only adding food, you are adding mindset, concentration, choice, movement, and a bunch of other things. And that's why I think we use the word holistic. It's really powerful.
Yes.
And you live in Venice Beach, correct?
I recently moved. I'll just get to that in a second, but I just want to say you said something important. You said our healthcare professionals, the first thing they should be asking is the gut, and I agree with you. However, I would say that for most people, their their doctor is not a healthcare professional. I don't think that doctors are evil. I think most of them are pretty good, probably, good people and smart. But you cannot call a doctor a healthcare professional because they don't study health. They study sickness and disease, and they study the pharmaceutical interventions that they can prescribe to numb one out to the inevitable symptoms of not living in a healthy way. So I look at myself as a health professional because I study health and I live according to the precepts of health as I understand them. And I'm healthy. I've been, I have health insurance because I'm a responsible man. And God forbid I get hit by a bus or something. In this country, you got to have health insurance. But I don't go to my doctor for general tips and stuff. Like I said, I have health insurance, so I get, part of it is I get an annual physical. I'm already paying for it, so I might as well use it. So I go to see my doctor once a year, and it's in the hospital, and none of them are. I mean, I don't want to say none of them, but majority are not healthy. They're not well. Hospitals are not bastions of wellness. They're they're sterile. So, if you want to be healthy, really healthy, not just not sick, because they're not the same thing. If you want to be healthy, find a health professional. If you just want to be not sick or less sick, then that's what the doctor's good for.
Even one of the core requirements of practicing any contemplative practices, either it's yoga or any form of meditation, is to be healthy. At least mind, body. If you have backache, you have tummy ache, you have some issue, it's really hard to sit down and even concentrate.
Mm-hmm.
So keeping yourself healthy is number one, or striving for it. So we covered. I know this. We have. I know you go really deep. You can go deep. Each topic can be in itself a podcast, and I know you cover a
Sure.
lot in your program itself. So let's let's move into movement. You are a martial artist
Mm-hmm.
by training. Um, Movement is, I think, one of my favorite topics. I love Muay. I do once in a while dabble, just for fun, in Muay Thai. I run. I love my kettlebell, one of my favorite exercises. And I could see the change in state. Let's say I do a workout maybe at noon or in the morning, whatever I do. And if it hits like a level where I'm reaching my limit, but then, I know when to pause, I finish up, and I have amplified levels of concentration and energy throughout the day. I feel great. So I would love for you to share your wisdom on this topic.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different avenues you can go with a movement practice. It is difficult, I find, to prescribe a one size fits all. This is the way you should move your body every day because everybody's different. Everybody's at a different season of life. Everybody has different capacities, interests, restrictions. And so in the online course, I don't really get super specific with movement. When we go on the residential retreats and I'm actually in physical proximity with the group, then we explore some different movement modalities, like you said. So I'm a Muay Thai instructor. I'm a Filipino martial art instructor. I'm an instructor in a martial art called Silat from Indonesia. I teach self defense and I teach Tai Chi and Qigong. So there's the internal practices that are more of a movement meditation, just meant to kind of heighten your sensitivity of your own body and your body's energy. And then there's quite a few on that list that are more combative martial arts, and they're fun. They're fun to practice, and I think it's a useful skill to develop to have some level of fluency in the application of violence or self defense. Um, So for some people, martial art, it's interesting and it's a very fruitful movement practice to explore. Um, but just walking every day, I think walking is probably the best medicine. Stretching to some extent, myofascial release, non-linear movement, just getting out of your head about the way the movement practice needs to look like, or forgetting about any kind of goal in the movement and just almost giving the steering wheel, taking it out of your brain and giving it to your body, setting the timer for 5 or 10 minutes and just letting your body just move in the way that it wants to be moved. Like let the animal of your body take over. Um, so there's a million ways to move your body, but you notice that movement is at the end of the list. Contemplative practice, functional breathing, sleep hygiene, hydration, nutrition all come first. Because, like I said earlier in this discussion, once you start to cultivate energy, you have to move. Most people are already depleted. They're already spending from a deficit just in their day to day daily life. And then they're going to ask their body to, when they don't even have the juice to get through a day, they're going to ask their body to then also get through a strenuous movement practice. And that's the first step that most people take with regard to getting themselves healthy. So it's backwards.
Mhm.
So my recommendation for guys who want to get well, basically I've developed a course. If you want to start a martial art path, or if you want to start an exercise regimen, you should make sure that you're doing all of these things first, because then when you show up to your martial art academy or to the gym, the work that you put in will actually bear fruit quickly because you're working with an energetic surplus. You're not depleted.
Mm,
And
that's
then there's with regard to movement, you mentioned earlier I live in Venice. I recently moved down the street to Marina del Rey, but it's right down the street. So I'm here in Southern California, and I work out at Gold's Gym Venice, the mecca of bodybuilding. It's an amazing place. There's a lot of really freak athletes there, and it's a great place to just watch people. But I bring that up because it's an example of individuals who, you can be healthy, but not necessarily fit. You know, you can also be very fit, but not necessarily healthy. So some people are very fit. They can run a 6 minute mile, they can bench press more than their body weight, but whatever, they can hit all these markers for fitness, but they're not necessarily well. They're not happy. They're not comfortable in their own skin. Maybe they're leveraging, pre-workouts or synthetic hormones to push their bodies beyond what their body is telling them is healthy. So the point I make is you can be fit but not healthy. You can be healthy but not necessarily fit. But in the work that I share and in the way I try to live my life is we're trying to be both. And you can be both.
mm, thank you for sharing. And I also want to cover one of my favorite topics is contemplation, meditation. A few years ago, I enrolled in a course. It was, I think, maybe 6 or 7 week course that you conducted based on a tradition that I think you are familiar with. I don't remember the name of the teacher, where you
Mm-hmm.
had to be aware of I think 4 different types or 3 different types of stimuli: sound, internal feelings, external feelings, and a few others. And that was sort of an opening for me because I followed through, and that helped me, sort of gave me an introduction, a really powerful introduction to try out other practices. Um, and I know, does it, when you mention concentration, do you, in your programs, do you use meditative and reflective practices to build the concentration within,
Mm-hmm.
or it is something you use separately? And what traditions do you personally are in your journey are working on right now?
I do remember having you in that course years ago, and I remember your diligence. So good on you. I'm
Mhm.
glad it opened up a deeper exploration for you. Um, yes, so concentration is the critical skill that we want to develop as a meditator. And like any skill worth having, it requires intensity and consistency to develop. So I am on a sole mission to disabuse men of the notion, number one, that meditation is like kind of, a little light in the loafers, hippy dippy, new age. It's not. Meditation's not my thing. I work with a lot of type A type guys who are super, you know, they're like very masculine. And there's an unfortunate uh, disdain toward the inner work. And so my mission is to obliterate that. The other thing is, most people are operating under the assumption that meditation should be relaxing or easy, but not at all the case. Further down the line, meditation needs to become a complete non doing, no effort. Effort becomes a hindrance. Even the idea of a meditator starts to get pulled apart. But at the outset, you have to summon the strong, unwavering determination to wrangle your mind away from distraction and back to the object of concentration, which in my course is the breath in the body. And that requires intensity and effort. And it's a cognitively demanding task, and it's not necessarily relaxing. It becomes more relaxing than you could even imagine, but only after you establish strong, continuous concentration. But concentration opens the possibility of being intentional with how you occur moment by moment. Because in developing concentration, we're developing metacognition, which is this capacity to maintain a witness perspective on our own mind. And from that perspective, we can discern moment by moment, is what is perseverating in my mind at this moment true and useful? And if the answer to both those questions is no, then we can start to let go of all the discursive, random, afflictive thoughts and start to become intentional with our moment by moment experience. You can incline the mind toward positive states. You can focus um, diligently on the task at hand. Concentration opens up a door to performance excellence in all domains. Because what is the unifying factor in anything that you do? A lot of the guys I work with are, maybe they're entrepreneurs or athletes or they're creatives, but they're also fathers. All of us, we all wear a lot of hats. We all have a lot of objectives. The common thread in all of them is our mind. So if we take the time to sharpen our mind through cultivating strong concentration, we get better at all the things that we are.
Mm. Thank you for sharing. And what at this moment, it's not necessarily something you are teaching men,
Mhm.
but you have studied under different teachers, you experiment different tradition. At this point in your life, for your own develop, development of your sole purpose, or whatever level that you would like to achieve in this realm, what practices do you have a daily practice under a certain school of thought?
So you're asking like, well, in what domains am I currently a student?
Yes, in
Yeah. So right now I'm very interested in a movement practice called functional patterns. I don't know if you've heard
functional
of it,
patterns. Hmm.
but it's basically it's a movement methodology, kind of an approach to exercise that breaks down human movement into four specific domains: standing, sprinting, throwing, and walking. And the mentality or the ethos is basically that your movement practice should be to do those four things functionally and well. And if you can do that, then you'll experience much less pain in your life, physical pain, and you'll optimize your physiological function. Another thing that they preach is myofascial release. And so I have found it very interesting these past few months. I do a 40-minute myofascial release session, foam roller, basketball, lacrosse ball, everything. And I can really just feel my musculature just kind of becoming more hydrated and supple. And I'm getting older, but I feel like I'm moving better. So in that area of my life, I'm very much a student, and it's an area of interest for me right now.
Mm, thank you for sharing, because I know you are in a path. You are you are a student, and you are always seeking out different ways to enhance yourself, so that you can take this knowledge and pass it on to others for their well-being. So you're always on the lookout for different styles, traditions, and techniques. I
I
really
appreciate
admire that.
that. I'm sorry to cut you off. I was just going to say I appreciate that. And that's a great question. And I would say to the listeners, be wary of any teacher, self-proclaimed teacher, who's not also a student in some other domain. Because the best teachers that I've ever had, and the ones I gravitate toward, are constantly students and actually even approach their own teaching as none other than a way to help them refine their understanding of a given topic. So the best way to learn is actually to teach.
Yeah, yeah. We have a limited number of years on this planet, and the body is a vehicle to practice and reflect. Um, and yeah, and there are so many different traditions. Each teacher has um, their own view on consciousness, on navigating reality, and I'm really interested in learning different perspectives. And when you combine, and I'm slowly moving towards something you have already established in your life and your purpose and your career. It's also, a martial art practice, a movement practice, and a sitting down practice, and how you can interplay and then combine with the different elements to unleash your potential. So I know we are getting to the end. Is there any topic that I haven't had a chance to discuss that you want to talk about, and also you want to share? When is the next cohort of your program, and how would people find you? So anything that I've left out.
Well, there is one thing that we could talk about, but we might have to come back for round three because we sure don't have the time to get into it in these last 5 minutes. But it's the Savage and Saint philosophy. My company, my consulting company, my living philosophy is called
Mm.
Savage and Saint, and it is, in my view, it speaks to to access true abiding vitality as a as an abiding state. A man needs to contact both a relentless determination to improve himself, to conquer current limiting factors, to rebel, revolt, to fight, the savage, strong determination, but that needs to be leavened by this saintly disposition toward yourself and toward the world that it's actually ludicrous that you could ever make it any more beautiful and perfect than it already is. Uh, so if we can allow both of those things to be true in one body, in one moment, it unlocks this spark. And that's really what it's all about. To whatever your self-improvement endeavor, you'll need to summon a relentless resolve, but it needs to start from a place of radical, authentic self-acceptance, reverence, and self-love. And that's the balancing act that we all must take on, the balance between the savage and the saint.
It's like you are at the center of the yin and yang circle,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. But you got to find that center point. A lot of guys that I work with are too savage, and a lot of guys that I work with are too saint. You think of the archetypes of the, like I spoke to earlier, the alpha entrepreneur, hyper macho, clown, and then the other end is the new age, soft as a feather, not really about anything, overly pushed and pulled by his own emotions. But there's something in the middle there that I think is missing in the men's work sphere that I'm striving to bring to more and more people. And so the way to get in touch with me is to just go to savageandsaint.com. I'm currently rebuilding the website, but you'll see the old version of the website. I don't know when this is going to air, but what you could do there is find my social media, and I'm active on Instagram, and then also subscribe to my newsletter, because I send out a weekly reflection that's just some kind of illustration of the Savage and Saint philosophy, and then I'll also promote my work through that channel. So that's when you'll get updates on, upcoming retreats, intensives, and the Masculine Vitality Program, the next cohort.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I love your newsletter. It's really it's like a storytelling, captivating take on your philosophy with action items as well. I really love
Thank
those
you.
letters. It was a pleasure having you, Michael. Thank you for your wisdom and insights. I've learned a lot, and I hope everyone took something in. And I hope you continue doing this powerful work and inspiring others to follow the path and embed this philosophy in people coming in the next generations ahead. Thank you so much, Michael, and I look forward to our next chat. Thank you.
Likewise, Shameen. Thank you. Always a pleasure.
Okay.